Hi everyone, it's Manda here, and I'm here today with my fabulous friend Mia Renner, who is a alchemist and an Akashic transformation healer coach, and she's extraordinary. I've recently had probably one of the best readings and healings I've ever had in my life with Mia, which is why I've got her here. Um, it was next level. But without further ado, Mia, welcome to Yachting International Radio. You're on my show, Inspirations with Manda J. And I'd just love to know, maybe you could just introduce yourself to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well.
Pleasure.
So yeah, I am Mia. I am an Akashic transformation mentor, and I specialize, or the core of my work is about Akashic transformation. So reading people's library of information. So everything, every thought, every action, every emotion that they've experienced, past lives, current lives, and also even future life. Is recorded in the Akashic Records. So all their information is stored in their soul consciousness, which then can be translated as a specialized personal artifact. So kind of like a sacred pyramid within your consciousness. So I can read this information through a specialized protocol that I follow, and I can identify the root of trauma and the root of karmic patterns and the blocks and restrictions that are limiting people from living their best lives, being the best version of themselves, and obviously living abundant lifestyles within any of the 8 life structures, whether it's personal life, business, career, community, whether it's blocking their spiritual growth or progression, and preventing them from evolving. So yeah, it kind of covers the whole the total concept of everything that we can store and work through in our lifetimes.
Wow, that's amazing. So first of all, let's get a grip on what the Akashic Records are, because I'm sure a lot of people in our yachting world have probably never heard of it. And if they have, they're probably still intrigued to understand. So as you speak about it, my understanding is it's kind of like a giant computer of all your information ever, and all your ancestors and everything that sort of makes you up who you are here now. And it's all stored, or like you said, like a library.
Yeah.
And then how do you learn to access it? Can I just learn to do that myself right now?
I mean, anybody, we all have the capacity and we all have the power to tune in. For simplicity terms, I prefer to describe it as it's accessing your soul consciousness, your super consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can access their own soul consciousness. Of course, to be taught techniques to do it, in which to open you up to actually be able to access, because we've all got intuitional abilities and we've all got psychic abilities. This all comes from the third eye, but quite often a lot of people, they're not using their third eye in this lifetime, because a lot of people are not meditating, or their third eye has become calcified due to the consumption of chemicals and toxins that actually calcify the third eye. So basically I teach people techniques of how to activate and decalcify their third eye, that they can actually then tap into their intuitional and psychic abilities. And then again, it's just teaching people a technique of how they can go up into their own super consciousness or their soul consciousness to access their living library of information, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to kind of simplify it and describe it in simple terms that most people can understand, because then if you start talking about artifacts and ancestors and things like this, you can kind of lose people a little bit if they're not connected with that kind of thing. But generally, it's every thought that you've had, every word that you've spoken, every feeling that you felt, and everything that you've actioned in your life is stored within your consciousness. So yeah, it is basically like a conscious computer. And the brain is also, the brain's also a computer. So the brain's also, we've got our physical Akashic record, which is the brain, and then we've got the soul Akashic record, which is soul consciousness.
So how would a reading look? So if what are some of the things that may come up? Like, I know that's a broad question, but could you, what would be some of the, like, if I was to have a session with you right now and we were recording it, what would be like the top 3 things we'd work out? Like, I'm going to speak really generally as well, but so are you going to tell me like my future, that I'll marry a handsome sailor, or are you going to tell me that I've got a wounded past, or are you going to tell me that I was Cleopatra in a past life? What might come up?
If you want to hear that you're Cleopatra in a past life, I will tell you that you were Cleopatra in a past life. But
well,
no.
I know I was, so weren't we all?
I was Isis. I was Isis in a past life.
I spent £200 on that reading when I was vulnerable and 18 in Brighton with a chain-smoking old lady in a tie-dyed shirt.
Yeah, I think we've all wanted to hear something like this, right? We've all wanted to hear that we're a princess, a rich princess in a past life, and we all lived beautiful, abundant lives with our amazing soulmate prince.
Actually, I'd rather hear that I'm a princess in this life.
Yeah. Well, of course, you can bring that with you. If you were a princess in a past life, then you're going to be a princess in this life. You've just lost your way a little bit. So,
ended up sailing.
Yeah, exactly. You're a sailing princess. Yes, right. So generally, I mean, I've been working with the Akashic Records since 2013. And I worked very differently back then to how I work now. And so now I actually work with a protocol which kind of taps into what we're looking for is the blocks and restrictions that are limiting people, because nobody comes to have readings when they're happy and they're abundant and they're positive. Everybody comes to have these sessions when they're experiencing blocks and limitations and they're struggling at some point or they're lost. So what the work that I do specifically is identifying the root of, as I mentioned, karmic patterns, or the roots of people's trauma, because it's usually, the traumas and the karmic patterns that are creating the programs that people are running in their subconscious mental body, that's actually creating self-sabotages and limitations and creating failure energy and scarcity programming. And of course we can also pick up and inherit all of this from our ancestors. So I can kind of tap into and identify. The course that I'm doing at the moment is all about going into ancestral healing and identifying what people have perpetuated and inherited. So trauma wounding, ancestral trauma wounding, and yeah, I mean, it's we can inherit so much of this, particularly when it comes to scarcity programming and poverty programming and failure energy. We've picked up a lot from our ancestors, particularly because in my age group, for example, my generation, my grandparents fought in the war. So around the war, there was a lot of scarcity and poverty and failure and fear and chaos. And, this is kind of pretty much what's playing out now. I do think that this is a karmic, what we're experiencing now it's global karma. But anyway, that's for another interview. But yeah, it's basically covers, the reading that I do covers it's a 4-page protocol. So it covers a whole lot, and it's going into past lives, what soul attachments people have and the attachment mechanisms that they're running from soul attachments, whether they're soul contracts. Again, I don't want to get too deep into past life stuff because not everybody believes in past life as well. But when you start to identify these programs, everything just makes sense to people, and it's so accurate because I can pinpoint specific ages where people experience trauma in this life. And so then it's finding what the program they're running from the trauma and then clearing it, getting them to tap into it, to acknowledge it, and then to clear it.
And you were bang on. Like, I had a huge trauma in the Caribbean when I was 19, which no one knows about. And Mia picked it up. And when I told my mum, mum was about the only one that knew. And it was just crazy. Like, you know, when you hear like, wow, okay. And you move on and you sort of like get over it and forget about it in a way. But for, yes, you to pick that up and to be seen in that way, that, you know, I found everything you said incredibly accurate. Yeah.
And it is because we do bury it, and we, you know, this is what we're taught to do. It's like, as children, and again, this is a conditioning, you know, you fall down and it's your parents like, come on, get up, you're all right, get on with it. And they just usher you on, and this is what we do, you know, we do this in our adult life. So we bury and suppress energy, and then of course we're holding it in our body somewhere, whether it's emotional body or mental body. You know, we're holding it in our physical body, it's stored in our cellular memory system. And you know, if it's not treated, then it can create dis-ease within the body, which can then lead to disease and illness later in life. So it's all about addressing, and you know, once I pinpoint a trauma, then it's, you know, quite often the person will have forgotten all about it because it's such a long time ago, because it's generally like there's usually some childhood or adolescent trauma. And then it's when they kind of acknowledge it, it's a release, and then they'll have a little cry, they'll kind of make sense of it, they'll accept it, and then it kind of releases it organically from their cellular body. And then we just have to reprogram the subconscious mental body around the fears and the restrictions that trauma actually created, that's affecting them in their current life, because it wouldn't have showed up in their Akashic records if it wasn't affecting them in some way, on some level, now in the present moment, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. I absolutely love it. And so let's, before we wrap it up, let's just have a quick talk about this course you're running. I know it's something I would love to do. So you're teaching people how to do these readings?
Yes, basically. So the first level course is basically taking people through their own inner work processes. So it's inner alchemy, and teaching people tools and inner work processes so they can actually identify their own fears and beliefs. They can identify their own programs, and they can clear their own fears and programs. And also I'm teaching people specific meditation techniques, which is all about energy mastery. So how they can transmute karma, how they can burn karma from their energy body systems, not just the chakra system, but their higher energy body systems. And so we're kind of doing practical things like this. And then of course I'm teaching people how to tap in and identify fears, beliefs, imprints, and then how to clear them. And that's level 1. Some people will just want to do level 1 because they want to just learn to do their own inner work processes. And what they will gain from that is having tools going forward for the rest of their life, that any new programs or karma or fears and beliefs that they self-perpetuate, they can then tap in, identify, and clear it. So we don't have to keep upholding all this limiting energy and self-sabotaging. And then level 2 is teaching people how to read their own Akashic records, and then how to read for clients. And so, you know, basically it's just about working remotely and working online. So it's a new way of working where people can like integrate it into their own business, whether if they're a Reiki healer or whether they're a massage therapist or a yoga teacher, they can actually bring it into and offer it as another tool. And it is, you know, I mean, it is super powerful, and you do not have to be psychic to do this work. Do not have to be psychic.
Amazing.
I really want to specify that, because a lot of people think I can't do it because I'm not psychic. I don't have this psychic ability. I'm not in tune with my intuition. You don't have to be. And this is the tools that I'll be teaching you, is, you know, to activate your third eye and to develop. And what's more important is discernment. Teaching discernment is discerning the inner voice, the inner higher self voice against the inner lower self voice. So that's where a lot of people kind of doubt themselves because they're not sure, is this my ego or is this my higher self? So it's, yeah, so we're teaching discernment and tools that you can utilize that will help you to work through the protocol. And it is simple, it's not hard, it's just a lot of information, which is why I've split it into 2 levels.
I think it's something everyone could do, and it would be so, imagine if it was taught in schools. What a amazing world.
This is my goal. This really is my goal, that I want to get this. Before I die, I want to leave a legacy. And this is the legacy that I want to leave, is because I'm also going towards the end of next year, then I want to, when the people who come and do the level 2 with me, I want to take them and teach them how to teach this, to be teachers. And I've just set up my Inner Alchemy Academy. And so this is what Inner Alchemy Academy is all about. It's just training teachers up to actually do this work, because everybody needs to do this. This needs to get out there, and it needs to be mainstream.
Oh, I love this. It does need to be mainstream. And that's what I'd like to point out. So, you know, working with Mia is there's no woo-woo. It's all, you know, while some of the concepts might sound a little out there, like when you work with Mia, it is from personal experience, it's just very matter of fact. You know, there's, like, I don't want to generalize, but you don't get that feeling of like incense and, you know, crystals and tie-dye. And working with Mia, it's a very professional consultation. She's incredibly professional. And the way the information's delivered is just very matter of fact and simplified. And I you know, that's my thing. I'm really into education and communication and delivery, and you're just so bang on, and really hold the space without, you know, and going into weird stories. And it was, as I said, one of the best things I've ever done. So yeah, so you're in Thailand, in Koh Phangan, is it?
Yeah, Koh Phangan.
And Mia used to live in Mallorca, so she's been around the yachties for a long time. But if you do you do any live events out in Thailand? If anyone is out there at Yacht Haven or any of the marinas at the moment, can people see you in person?
Yeah, sure, they can come and see me. I mean, this work it doesn't have to be in person, because it's remote, and because I'm working with their soul consciousness, not with their physical body. So I'm not doing any physical. I mean, I've transitioned from doing hands-on Reiki healings and crystal healings and kinesiology. You know, I've done all the practical bodywork therapies, and I've kind of slowly and organically transitioned to doing online work, because I was just guided, whether you want to say I was guided by my higher self or whether I was guided by spirit. I was just taken to another level of working directly with people's soul and not with their physical body. So, you know, you don't have to be present. You can, I mean, I do most of my work online and remotely, so it's not, and it doesn't affect the process at all. In fact, I actually found that since I've been just working with the soul, the healings have been more profound and deeper and more sustainable, rather than doing the hands-on, because then I'm kind of working through the physical body, and there's a lot of ego blocks and ego restrictions, and I'm kind of trying to work through the ego blocks and restrictions first to actually get into the soul body. But when I'm working like this remotely, I can just access people. Everybody's relaxed. People are not nervous, because I'm working with people in their own spaces, in their own homes. They're lying on their own bed. So there's no fear. They're not worried about what I'm going to do and what I'm moving around them. And they're just relaxed. And it's just such deeper work.
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember lying on my bed and waking up, and I was like, I'm booking a beach house for the weekend. Running away, and then I did, and it was really nice to come back. And I get what you mean. There is, especially if you're not used to it, being on that therapist bed can sometimes be, and finding the place. You know, I remember like when I definitely needed some work a few years ago after a really big sailing injury. I was in South France, and you know, I was trying to find houses, and, you know, I was exhausted and in pain and on so many medicines. I probably shouldn't have been driving a car, and, you know, then, and that whole thing of finding the house and finding a car park and then going into some weird environment, you know, like cutting through all that does create a lot of
it does,
doesn't it? So,
and you know, the good thing about this work is when I actually, because the Akashic reading is a 2-part process, so the reading and then the healing, and I do it separate days. When I actually do the healing, I actually encourage the people to just give themselves as much time as they need. And some people, they're coming back to me after 3 hours that they've just been on this like beautiful journey. It literally takes me about an hour to do the actual process, but they can be in such a deep space because it kind of induces them into a theta meditative state, and then they're going on their own journey and they're receiving their own messages and they're tuning into their own soul light, right? So, you know, some people, they can feel me switch off after 1 hour and they'll message me and say, hey, I'm back, thank you so much. And then other people, they'll come back to me after 2 hours, 3 hours, and say, yeah, I'm just sorry, I was gone for 3 hours and that was so beautiful. I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter. And this is the beauty about being in their own home, that they literally can just tune out of the outside world and just stay in their own beautiful internal space, and it's really nice.
It's awesome. So what we're going to do is put all your details below this video, and thank you so much for being on Yachting International Radio. And let's do it again. I think like the more we talk, we could actually, you know, uncover some really cool stuff and educate all these guys on.
I could talk about this for hours. It's like such a profound but subjective subject to talk about. There's just so much information that we can talk about with it. There's so many different subsidiaries and levels, and like, yeah, I can just talk about it for hours. It's a really diverse topic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love it. I'm going to sign up to the course. All right, thanks so much. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Check out Mia. All the details will be below. Thanks so much. You've been on Yachting International Radio with Manda. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Lots of love.
Bye. Bye.